welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Dabble. I am Mike Barner. He is Kirien Sprecher, and we come to you every Wednesday to give you the information that you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues. And we're going to get right to it today. No salutations back and forth between me and Kirien because we have a very special guest joining the show, Ricky O'Donnell of SB Nation and one of the hosts of the Cast Considerations, a Chicago Bulls podcast, is joining the show today. Ricky, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So the Bulls actually did something, and we're very excited about them actually having some movement. What do you think about the Bulls' 3 trades that they've made so far? Do you like the direction that they're going in here? And just finally, they did something.
Yeah, definitely good to see Arturas Karnisovas is awake because I haven't been totally certain of that throughout most of his tenure. Pretty interesting gamble yesterday for Jaden Ivey, cashing in Kevin Huerter for Jaden Ivey. I think at face value, that is pretty good value for the Bulls. But the question really becomes, how does Jaden Ivey fit into the Bulls' future? The first thing I noticed, he's a $30 million cap hold for this summer. Will the Bulls come to an agreement with him on an extension in restricted free agency, or will that drag out the way we saw it drag out with Josh Giddey last year, the way we've seen it drag out with other restricted free agents around the league? I think it is essential for the Bulls to get Jaden Ivey on a team-friendly contract coming off these injuries. He just hasn't been the same player this year after the horrific leg injury he suffered on New Year's Day 2025. So I am curious how the Bulls can get Giddey on a good deal, get Ivey on a good deal, while still being able to throw around their cap space this summer, maybe target a new center, maybe target Tari Eason or Peyton Watson in restricted free agency. I think that's going to be a tough needle to thread, but I'm excited to see how they can do it. And then the lead story, really, just finally, Vooch is gone. And Vooch, I've been a critic over the years, no doubt, but he's also been a professional. He's definitely got strengths as a player. His three-point shooting really allowed the Bulls to do different things in terms of their floor spacing and just helping get their three-point volume up. Not exactly the most mobile guy. I'm not breaking any news here, but he was a very good defensive rebounder. And I think that Vooch was a good soldier. And in a lot of ways, this trade to me is Arturas Karnisovas doing his boy Vooch a solid by sending him to a contender, finally freeing him from the mediocrity that is the Chicago Bulls franchise. And to get, the Pelicans second round pick back in that, number 32 overall at the moment, I think that's pretty good value for Vooch at this point in his career. So I like the moves in general, but I think the Bulls got a lot more work to do. They, still have Coby and Io on this roster. Can they sell high on either of those guys? I don't know how I feel about Jaden Ivey replacing one of them. Like, those two guys are better than Jaden Ivey. At the moment, I think that Ivey does have some latent upside if he can get back 100% physically. So we'll see how it all plays out. But hey, the Bulls less boring today than they were 2 days ago, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into more potential trades that the Bulls might do in the next couple of days, I want to talk about Ivey real quick. You mentioned maybe, he's on a team option right now for this season, right? So he's going to be a free agent this offseason. Maybe the Bulls, this is the Bulls podcast, no longer the Bulls Minute.
Oh no, Kirien. Kirien dropped a we. Oh no.
3 minutes in, it couldn't even last that long. But yeah, so he's on this team option. From a fantasy perspective, do you think the Bulls are going to give him, kind of a runway here to see what they have and give him, an extended opportunity? Or does that all depend on whether or not Ao or Coby get traded?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think Ivey's really healthy right now based on what I've seen this year. Like, his injury, that broken leg injury, I just watched it after the Bulls completed the trade. I mean, oh my God, what a horrible injury. I remember writing about it at the time. Cole Anthony just dove at his legs, totally a reckless play. Cole Anthony, what the hell are you doing? And then he had to have knee surgery coming off it in October. So he probably shouldn't even be playing right now. Obviously, Detroit just outgrew him in general, emerging as the best team in the East. So it's hard for me to say how many minutes Ivey will get when the Bulls have like 8 guards on the roster right now. They still have Giddey, Io, Coby, Trey Jones. There's so many more. Anthony Simons now joins the mix. And I'm interested from your guys' perspective, being a fantasy show, can I expect any steals out of Jaden Ivey? Can I expect any assists out of him? Can I expect any rebounds out of him? Because just looking at his advanced stats, he doesn't seem too well-rounded in terms of like impacting the game on the margins. I think when I evaluated Ivey as a draft prospect, I thought, hey, maybe this guy could be an on-ball star, a la Donovan Mitchell, if he hits his 100th percentile outcome. If he doesn't have the same burst anymore, and maybe it takes a little bit to regain it, all right, you got to transition into being more of a role player. You got to impact the game in other areas. Do you guys think that he can actually accumulate some of those other stats outside of scoring?
So yeah, I think yes, but like you said, that's going to require him to be fully healthy. When this season with the Pistons, I drafted Jaden Ivey. I thought maybe he was going to come back and be part of this Pistons team that jumps to the top of the standings and is really good, but he was mostly a 3-and-D guy without really racking up any of the defensive stats. He was just out there to hound guys defensively. He shot pretty well from 3 for the Pistons this year, but that's because he was a more stationary player. So I think, like you said, the Bulls have all of these guards, right? So it's going to be hard for him to see minutes or play this ball dominant, role on both ends of the court where he is racking up those steals. So I don't think you're going to see the uptick in the assist or steals unless he's fully healthy. And I don't know if that's going to happen this season.
Well, I think the big domino, Ricky, that we're looking for next is what happens with Coby White. It feels like maybe Dosunmu. Do you think maybe he's played his way into being more of an important part of the Bulls' future moving forward? And in turn, that pushes the Bulls to really try and trade Coby White over the next 24 plus hours?
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like Io has more value than Coby now. And the Bulls want to hang on to Io and ditch Coby. It's like, well, can the Bulls ever sell high on anyone under Arturas Karnisovas? Like, do you understand the value proposition of this game when you're not going to maximize the value of your own first-round pick by tanking? Can you get some surplus picks? Is that possible for AK? I would be looking to sell on Io, sell high. If you get a good first-round pick, a top 20 pick in this draft and a future draft, I think that would be a good value proposition for the Bulls. I'm thinking about what kind of contract Io is going to demand in free agency. He's currently making $7.5 million. And even on that scam deal, the Bulls cannot build a good team. He's probably in line to get, I'm just going to guess, 4 years, $60 million. He's probably a $15 million a year player, similar to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, what he signed for in Atlanta. I think Io rocks for sure. I do think he's maybe a tad overrated long-term because he doesn't really generate any takeaways. The team gets crushed on the glass when Io's on the floor for whatever reason. He just doesn't box out, or maybe it's partially a fluke. I don't know if you guys have any insight into that. And then he's just shooting 45% from 3. So, is that really going to happen next year? Is that going to happen going forward? I'm a little skeptical of that. I sort of like the idea of Ivey replacing Io more than Coby, because Coby at least gives you volume shooting.
Yeah.
And you kind of need volume shooting next to Giddey, whereas Ivey is more of a ball-dominant player, at least if you're really going to unlock his top-end outcomes. So it's going to be an interesting debate, but I think, if the Bulls get rid of Coby and they only get back expiring contracts, or if they only get back, second-round picks, kind of a disappointing return, because Coby's been a pretty solid player for the Bulls. This has not been his best year. He's been hurt. He's tough. He plays hurt, plays with his calf strain. I've been really hoping the whole year that Coby doesn't tear his Achilles, because it just feels like a calf strain is a pre-Achilles tear at this point in NBA history. So definitely some balls up in the air at the moment. The Bulls also have one healthy big on the roster. That's Jalen Smith, who's my favorite player on the team. I love Jalen Smith. I think he's awesome. Super underrated, should play more. I think he's a starting caliber player. With that being said, he's probably best as a power forward.
Yeah.
And you need some centers on this team. Zach Collins isn't coming back. Vooch is gone. So they need to be wheeling and dealing over the next, 36 hours here. So we'll see how it goes. But, the Coby question is the big one facing the team going forward.
The only thing about AO I want to talk about is, do you think there's any hometown discount on either end for him, being an Illinois grad, or, I don't know if he graduated, but, being an Illinois product and whatever. So he's the home. Does he want to stay in Chicago, or maybe the front office wants to keep him around just because he's a hometown kid? Does that play into this at all?
Maybe. If I was advising Io, I would say get all the money you can get, man. You just had an amazing you're having an amazing season. Like, he's truly had a special season.
And like you said, Coby White is trending down and AO is trending up. So there's more value to move AO right now. And it would probably be better for both parties to move off of him because he can get more money, play on a contender, and we can actually get better assets than the Bulls would get if they moved Coby White at this point, right?
That's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But, if the Bulls want to keep Io, I don't know. I think he's probably worth $15 million a year in this environment. So I wouldn't think that the Bulls are getting like ripped off if they do that. But yeah, it's tough because the Bulls have a lot of good role players. I don't hate this Bulls team as much as I've hated previous iterations of the squad. I think Trey Jones and Jalen Smith have been legit gems to find this year. Io's obviously awesome. Giddey has proven me wrong and has been a pretty solid addition for the team. So, and then Bizelis, I think, is good. Is he going to be an all-star? I don't know. He's got a long way to go. But, even in this game against the Bucks last night, 5 blocks, 5 threes, that's pretty good. So I think Bizelis, and then I love Dosunmu too as a pick, but he had the worst rookie year possible. You literally can't have a worse rookie year than scoring 0 points and suffering a season-ending injury. And he's just missing all this valuable time when he really needed to play and develop. And now he can't even lift weights with his shoulder injuries.
And the rest of this draft class, every other player in this draft class seems to have a stretch of productive, periods at some point this season. Yeah, if Patrick Williams is worth $18 million a year or whatever that contract was, then I think Dosunmu is definitely worth $18 million a year. You said the Bulls need to be wheeling and dealing, looking for a center. We love Jalen Smith. What other trades would you envision happening this year? Do you think that they can make a trade for a center? Like what kind of tier of center would they be looking for?
All right, here's my favorite deal left on the board if they could do it. Give me Yves Missy from the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for this Pelicans second-round pick the Bulls just got back.
Ooh.
In the Vooch deal, maybe throw in something else, more seconds, I don't know. But Missy is a freak athletically, super fluid athletically. You just don't see guys with his fluidity at that size. Absolutely a switchable defender. And I think he's going to be a possession maxer. Like, you guys would know more than me on the fantasy show, but he strikes me as an elite offensive rebounder. Yeah. And the Pelicans have been closing games with him down the stretch over Derek Queen or some other options, even though this front office didn't draft Missy. The last one did. So I don't know how tied to him they are. So I would try to go after Missy. Of course, this also fits Arturas's generally stupid plan, which is to go after young players with experience who other teams don't want anymore. But it has provided some hits. I mean, somehow Jalen Smith was drafted ahead of Tyrese Halliburton, but he's been pretty good this year. And then Okoro, they did that. He's been fine, solid. Looks like a good trade, honestly, for Lonzo, who's completely cooked. And then, of course, Giddey. So Missy fits what the Bulls generally try to do. I would look for that trade. And then I feel like bigs, you can just find good bigs. Like, look at on the margins. I'm going to call these Moneyball finds, where you just give guys minimum contracts and they end up providing some value. But look at how good Diabate is for Charlotte. Look at how good Keita is for Boston. Like, you can Moneyball some of this stuff. So I would like to see the Bulls take a swing on a Moneyball guy and then trade for one center. Someone like Missy, I think, would be good. If you get him for that Pelicans second round pick, I think that would be a good trade for the Bulls if they could do it.
Ricky, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Tell everyone where they can read your work. You got your podcast too. Plug everything and anything, Ricky.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, you could read all my work at sbnation.com covering the NBA and college hoops in the WNBA. And then you can listen to my Bulls podcast, Cash Considerations. And I'm in third place right now in my fantasy league. I got to get up to first. So I'm going to start locking into the show even more than I have been and making sure I can win my playoffs this year in fantasy.
DMs are always open, Ricky. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's get some more Bulls trades by tomorrow. Thank you very much, Ricky.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ricky.
All right. Again, thank you for Ricky O'Donnell for joining us from SB Nation and Cash Considerations, a Chicago Bulls podcast. Kirien, what great timing to have a Bulls guy on the show, because the Bulls finally did something So we reacted already to a lot of the Bulls trades there, so we won't rehash a whole lot more. Jalen Smith, one of our favorite stash guys, looks like he is going to come to fruition here unless they make a Missy-type trade, right?
Yep, absolutely. You were the first person I thought of when that trade happened. You've been talking about getting the Vucevic trade for a long, long time. Jalen Smith is, gearing up to be a league winner. Like Ricky said, we don't know when Zach Collins is even going to come back. Maybe there's a trade for Yves Missy, but
I don't think Collins is coming back. They talked yesterday. They asked Donovan about it, and they're saying that there's no guarantee he's coming back this season. Yeah. So I think Collins is toast. I think he is.
And Ricky said Yves Missy, but so did Alex last week, right? For the Pacers. Yeah. So that's not going to be. Yeah,
all of us bad teams want Missy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a lot of things happened with these trades. A lot of players, a lot of moving parts with these trades. The picks swaps and everything. There's a lot to handle here, but I just think from a pure fantasy perspective, we have to look at the fallout on the Memphis side of things. Yeah. And because that's where the fantasy value is going to be, in my opinion. We're looking at Gigi Jackson, Taylor Hendricks, and Santi Aldama as like the starting front court in Memphis now. That there should be some production there. There's not really, maybe Kyle Anderson gets into the mix too, but he was hardly playing for Utah. And then, Walter Clayton in Memphis now. I know we talked about, like, Ty Jerome is having a really good game, really good return. He debuted just a week ago. Cam Spencer's had strong performances when he's been available. Scottie Pippen might be, coming back soon. And now they add Walter Clayton. Do they tank? And if they do tank, is Walter Clayton the winner there? Seems like Ja is completely on his way out. But I think from a pure fantasy perspective, the Memphis side of things is where we need to look for production.
Yeah, and I also want to touch base on the Jazz side. So we've talked about forever the Jazz a tanking team, the Jazz a tanking team.
Yep.
Well, they went out and traded picks and got Jaren Jackson Jr. I think this is a next season forward kind of deal where next season they may no longer be a tanking team. But Kirien, they're like 7-8 games out of the 10th seed in the West. They would have to jump 3 teams to get it. I don't think this changes the tank at all. I think this is really bad for Jaren Jackson Jr. The Kyle Filipowski. What do you think about Kyle Filipowski? Is that stash dead? I mean, he had a double-double last night. It was a great stat line. What do you think about Kyle Filipowski? We've been stashing him.
So why I look to the Memphis side is because Utah is just going to be a headache. And I think it's going to be a continuation of what we've seen the last couple of months. I think since like Christmas, right? When they started resting Markkanen. Nurkic is playing and then he sits, and then he's playing and then he sits. So I think it's just going to kind of be this rotation type of thing where Will Hardy sees different, who I have available on any given night, get these guys some minutes. How does that look? And then try this experiment on one night. And that's just going to be terrible for fantasy production in general. Obviously, like you said, Filipowski might have a double-double one night a week, right? And then the other night he might not play at all. So I do want to say, like, there's definitely going to be production in Utah, right? Like they don't play any defense. They score a lot of points. Like whoever is available on any given night should be productive. But from a season-long, fantasy perspective, especially for me in a lot of weekly setting leagues, I'm staying away from Utah. Obviously, if you're in daily lineup leagues and you can stream these guys, then you should be all over Utah. Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, when these guys are getting Bryce Sensabaugh, when these guys see those extended roles, you should be targeting them heavily as streamers in those daily lineup leagues. But from a weekly lineup setting, I would stay far away from Utah because you just never know. Start Nurkic on Monday and he gets 20 points and 10 rebounds, and then he sits the next 3 games. It's going to be something that we have to monitor really closely through the next couple of months.
The thing about the Jazz is it's not necessarily the Jaren Jackson Jr. because I think he's going to get rest days. It's not necessarily Nurkic because I think he's going to get traded. They added Jock Landale too. I mean, that's a guy that he doesn't cost much. What you've got to hope here is if you're stashing Kyle Filipowski, like I have in some leagues, you're hoping that Nurkic and Landale get traded before tomorrow. Now, Landale is a cheap contract, would be very appealing to contending teams that need a backup center. But the killer here is it killed his fantasy value because he has been very good for the Grizzlies. He's been someone that you've wanted to roster, approaching double-doubles on a nightly basis. Now on the Jazz, he's not going to start. And if he gets traded someplace else, he's not going to start. So I think, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't hurt to hold him for another 24 hours, but he'd be a guy where if you have a hot waiver wire ad because of these trades, he'd be one of the guys I'd be ready to drop. How about you, Kirien? Yeah,
absolutely. And the other part of this equation for Utah is, yes, this seems like a winning move, right? They want to contend, but like you said, that's for next season. This season, they're still playing for a lottery pick, right?
They can't catch that 10th spot. Why would they want to even catch the 10th spot? But they can't catch that 10th spot. So Jaren Jackson Jr., if you have him on your team, man, I'd be trying to trade him. I'd get anything that you feel good about. Because, I mean, they have, I think, like 31 games left. If I set the over-under on 14.5 games played for Jaren Jackson Jr. from here on out, what do you see? Under. I agree, Kirien. Under would be the way to go. He might not play 10 games from here on out. Yeah. So I think he's someone you got, like Markkanen, someone you got to trade. But one guy you don't have to trade, Kirien, just a quick props to our guy, Isaiah Collier, who played all 48 minutes against the Pacers yesterday, and he had 22, that's correct, 22 assists to go along with 17 points and 5 rebounds and 3 steals. And Kirien, what I like, 2 turnovers. Played the entire game, 22 assists and 2 turnovers. Oh, my guy, Isaiah Collier. I'm excited. Vucevic gets traded and Collier does that on the same day. It's Christmas in February for me.
Yeah, I know. We kept going back and forth. Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, Isaiah Collier. They're both very good, and I hope that they can both prosper down the stretch. But like we continue to say with Utah, you just never know who's going to be in the lineup on any given night. But these guys are valuable when they get those extended opportunities. 48 minutes is crazy.
Love it. Love it, Isaiah Collier. Now, before we move on to questions from the chat, let's talk about this the Cavs Clippers trade quickly here. What a weird trade that came out of nowhere. And Kirien, I'm just going to get my thoughts out right. I think this is an atrocious trade for the Cavaliers. All the pressure is on the Cavaliers to make a deep playoff run, and they got a guy who is one of the worst playoff performers in recent NBA history. This is a terrible, terrible real-life basketball trade in my eyes. Terrible. I don't like it.
I don't think that I can come up with an argument against that. I think we've talked at length about Darius Garland's injuries and, how he hasn't been 100%. They're right after this trade was finalized. Cleveland dumped their intel about how upset they were that Garland wasn't playing through these injuries. Who knows if that was, Donovan Mitchell influenced. Donovan Mitchell said that he didn't think that this Cavs team could reach the finals and that they needed to make a move. I don't think he specifically said trade Darius or anything, but the vibes are clearly off in Cleveland. So I understand them needing to make a move, but you don't change the vibes by going and getting the player that has notoriously bad vibes throughout his career. This guy has played with feels like almost every superstar in the league. And still hasn't reached the heights that you want from like a real life standpoint. Obviously, from a fantasy perspective, this is also hard because now you're just it's like the Spider-Man meme, right? It's Donovan Mitchell and James Harden in the backcourt pointing at each other. Like, they're just it's just gonna be a lot of iso ball. And I think Jarrett Allen gets a little bit of a boost here for the next couple of weeks. Evan Mobley's out, so he's going to be patrolling the paint more rebounds, more block opportunities. And then you have James Harden, who's one of the best pick and roll guards ever, and he might get some free buckets there. I'm not saying, go trade. Jarrett Allen's going to be, a second-round value moving forward, but I do think he's going to get a boost compared to what we've seen recently. But, yeah, from a real-life perspective, I don't think this trade helps Cleveland, jump Detroit, jump, the Celtics, jump New York in the standings.
Before we answer some questions here, Kirien, a word from our friends at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this basketball season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. All right, Kirien, let's hop in the chat here. Before we get to the best segment in all of the podcasting universe, let's head over to the chat to answer some questions. So first and foremost, since it looks like we lost Kirien here for a second, I will answer questions from Big Feller 15. 12-team, 9-cat head-to-head. I'm in first place. Drafted Tatum for $7. Can keep him for 3 years. Got an offer of Giddey for $15. Keep her for 2 more years. And Miles Turner. Squads needs blocks and field goal percentage. Do you think that is worth the trade? It looks like Kirien is back. Kirien, we missed you for a second. What do you think of this trade from Big Feller 15 Dynasty here, keeper draft? We like these little more in-depth questions.
Yeah, if you're in first place, and you know you have Jason Tatum for a while now, I don't think I would be moving off of Jason Tatum at this point. He's not going to help you win a championship this year, but he could help you win a championship in years to come. So I guess that's the big debate you want here. Is this championship more important than the next 3 years? If that's the case, sure, make this trade. But if you're in first place now and then you add Tatum to that team next year, that team's probably going to still be pretty good too. So it's maybe this is your you just want to win one time and you want to make this trade, go ahead and do that. But I think for the longevity and the health of your dynasty team, your keeper league, you shouldn't make this trade.
I wouldn't do it because I'm concerned about even this helping you this year, because Giddey's this hamstring thing seems to be lingering. And then with Turner, who knows what shape the Bucks are going to be in after the trade deadline. They could end up being a tanking team, and then Turner's not even playing down the stretch. So if Giddey's still battling the hamstring injury and then Turner doesn't play, you might be trading, at least 2 years of Tatum for nothing. So I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another trade question from Big Feller. Got an offer for Queen and Derek White for Tatum. Current squad.
He gives us his roster.
Yeah,
look at this roster. SGA, Jalen Johnson, Mitchell. I wonder why he's in first place. Trey Murphy, Con Knipple. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm curious why he's in a pickle here. I think this. You're not in a pickle at all. You're sitting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, you have all the
joy.
You have all the power right now. So yeah, I don't think you need to make a super drastic
and
move.
Pat, Big Feller, enjoy this. You got an awesome team. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. I want to touch on, skip down a couple bit because we didn't talk about Ace Bailey at all during the Utah segment. So Bailey's been really good recently. Over the last 8 games, 16 points, 5 rebounds. The last night he had 3 steals and 3 blocks, played 40 minutes. I think Ace Bailey is, I don't want to say he's not susceptible to rest nights. I do think that he's going to get some nights off down the stretch, but he missed a lot of time early this year. So he's one of these guys where not a lot of time, but he missed a handful of games. So I think he's one of those guys that is, I would rather have Ace Bailey than Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm not worried about Bailey resting at all. Really not, because the rest guys are Markkanen, George, and Jackson. So they have guys to rest. Bailey is not. And Ace Bailey is not winning games for the Jazz. So he's not going to be the guy that puts them over the top. The guys that are Markkanen, Jackson, Keontae George, and Nurkic if he's still on the team after tomorrow. So I don't think Ace Bailey's going to rest at all.
Cool. Valio, 10 points, 10-team points league. Jalen Smith is available. Pick him up now.
Oh, man.
Well, so Sadiq
this is the wrinkle here.
Yep, Sadiq Bey, Ty Jerome, or Dylan Brooks. You're in first place. Yeah, if those are your 3 drop candidates, that's fair. Brooks has been really, really good recently. So
I think I would drop Ty Jerome.
Yeah,
because the correct answer might end up being Sadiq Bey because he could get traded tomorrow. But if you can't wait until tomorrow and you're saying say he needs to do this right now, it's a daily moves league, and if he doesn't do it, he's going to lose out on Jalen Smith tomorrow. Then I would drop Jerome because he's more of a rest candidate for a tanking Grizzlies team. Brooks is pretty secure. Brooks is just giving you points, but it's a points league, so you're probably okay there. Bey could get traded tomorrow. If you can wait, I would say wait. If not, Ty Jerome for me.
Yeah, it's got to be Ty Jerome. 20 minutes, 19 minutes in his first 2 games back. Like you said, we'll see what happens on back-to-back sets. So, yeah, I think Ty Jerome.
He's not going to play 30 minutes, even when he's healthy. He's probably they have Cam Spencer. They have all these guards now.
Scottie
He's probably
Pippen coming back.
25 top 25, 27 minutes a night, right?
Yeah. Jalen Smith, pick up Jalen Smith, drop Tyler Jerome. Jordan Miller or Coby Sanders rest of season, James Chan asked. This is a great question. Obviously, the James Harden trade opens up more playing time for both of these guys. Do you have a favorite between these two?
I'd probably go Miller, but it's really close. It might be a personal preference on this one. I mean, I think the key is when is Garland coming back? The Clippers are in the play-in now, so they certainly still have something to play for. I don't think they're just going to sit him. Obviously, him playing would have a big impact on both of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. But I still think they're going to get playing time for this Clippers team even when Garland is healthy. I would say Miller too. I think Miller's been the more productive one, even though Sanders tends to get the starts when Kawhi Leonard or us James Harden has sat recently, and Chris Dunn is still starting for this team. We'll see if how long that continues once Darius Garland's in the lineup too. Is Keita a drop now, or can he be playing alongside with Vooch? James Chan asks. I would be holding Keita for now. I said yesterday with Nick. I think this is a huge hit for Vooch's fantasy value. I think he's obviously going to start. I think he's going to play 25 plus minutes, 28 plus minutes, but I don't think he's going to be seeing 30 plus minutes every night. He's not a good defender. Keita is a good defender. They're going to play this, mix and match a little bit. So I would hold Keita for now. If he's still seeing 20, 25 minutes, he can be a productive player. But obviously his both upsides for these centers take a huge hit, right?
If you're dropping Keita for Jalen Smith, then yes, I would do that. But
Okay.
We already saw last night the Celtics brought Peyton Pritchard off the bench. This is probably going to be a situation where because Simons is gone, they need Pritchard to come off the bench because Vucevic can provide the extra scoring for their starting lineup. So then you see Keita and Pritchard together off the bench, which you do kind of like because they've clearly have good chemistry this season. So it's nice that he's just not dropping into a bench unit that doesn't. But he's not going to start alongside Vucevic, and I don't think there's going to be a ton of minutes where the two are on the floor together. So it's definitely a big hit to his value. Like you said, it's okay to hold him. Unless you're going after the hot waiver wire ad, then I would drop him. I would.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a ton of minutes with them together, but I do think if Vooch is making his 3-pointers, there can be some minutes where he plays the 4 and he's just the floor spacer and Keita's inside too. But yeah, they're not going to rely on that consistently. Brian asks, Taylor Hendricks worth a grab in a 10-team 9-cat league? I'm going to say yes. I initially put Taylor Hendricks at the top of the power forward depth chart after this trade, after Santi Aldama got moved over to center, with Landale Landale and Jaren Jackson getting traded. Gigi Jackson has since been moved up ahead of Hendricks just because his familiarity with the team. But we've seen Gigi be productive at times. He can definitely score. But I think Taylor Hendricks is the better all-around player here. Obviously, you look at just his stats from the last couple of seasons, and you're like, he's not a good player. He hasn't been productive. He can't even see minutes for the Jazz when they rest, half their lineups. Why is he going to be productive for Memphis? And my answer to that is strictly because he shot 38% from deep on almost 4 3-pointers per game as a rookie. That is an elite trait for a guy that is, 6'9", right? He can rack up defensive stats if he gets the minutes. He can grab boards. He is an elite 3-point shooter. If he gets a runway here with Memphis, I think he can really boost the value that he's had that's dropped considerably. I think he was a lottery. Yeah, he was the number 9 overall pick. So there's draft pedigree here. I think Hendricks is definitely worth at least a shot, even in 10-team leagues after this trade. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I don't mind it in a 12-teamer. He'd be a guy that I would only add if the hot guys aren't available. And then he'd be a guy I'd be quick to cut bait on if somebody else pops up in your league that you want to add. But as a flyer in a 12-team league, I don't have any problem with that. Kirien, let's do one more question from the chat.
All righty. We talked about Ty Jerome as a rest candidate. Wemby, he's probably going to sit the second night of back-to-backs. He's only playing 20 minutes here. Yo Joe though says drop Keita for Day'Ron Sharpe or Cardwell if Sabonis gets traded. So this is another center question. What are your thoughts on this one, Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to see if Sabonis gets traded, what they get back. So that could be they could end up getting another center back in that deal, and then it becomes a bit of a murky situation. Sharp, I don't like to roster anybody on the Nets. I mean, I get it. Claxton's probably going to get more rest days, but I think Sharp could get rest days too. I think he could go even further down the depth chart and make it look real ugly. I think I'd rather hold on to Keita for now and just see how that initial Vucevic injection into the lineup looks.
I totally agree here. I understand the hype around Day'Ron Sharp, but folks, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. Yeah. His per minute production is not sustainable when he starts seeing 30-plus minutes. I know he's had a good stretch here. He had a good couple of good games earlier in January too, but I would rather hold on to Keita too. I don't think the Vucevic acquisition completely negates his value.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions in the chat. And now it's time for the What Was That stat lines of the week. Kirien, you are up first.
All right. Well, I'm going to the rookie class, as I've done so many times this year. This rookie class has been absolutely fantastic. It is saving me in a lot of fantasy leagues where I had a ton of injuries, but I sniped a couple of these rookies early. I've just been riding them to the promised land. The one rookie that was, not available on the waiver wire this year because everybody knew he was going to be really good is Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg scored 49 points against the Hornets on Thursday. 20 for 29 from the field. Mike, I think, if you put me on a basketball court right now with no defenders, I might not even be able to make 20 out of 29 shots wide open in an empty gym. And I consider myself a pretty decent basketball player. Very impressive performance from the young buck. The youngest, or the first player, the most points. Sorry. This is an interesting stat. A lot of credentials need to go into this one. The most points scored by a player under 20 years of age in NBA history, 49 points for Cooper Flagg. People are talking about this incoming rookie class being really good. There's a lot of really talented guys, the BYU guy, the Kansas kid, Boozer at Duke. But this rookie class right now, it's going to be hard to beat, right? In this game, Cooper Flagg had 49 points, carried the Mavs, but Con Knippel, his former Duke teammate, was the one that hit the game-winning shot after a Cooper Flagg turnover. Cooper Flagg, 49 points, breaking NBA history, but also committing a turnover to lose a game. What was that?
My What Was That stat line of the week on February 1st, Jared Allen had 40 points against the Trailblazers. In addition to his 40 points, he had 17 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 4 blocks. But I buried the headline. He only played 29 minutes. It's not like he played 38, 39 minutes. He had 40 points and 17 rebounds in 29 minutes. He was 16 for 23 from the field, 8 for 12 from the free throw line. And it's not as if he was playing bums. He was up against Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams, who are 2 good shot blocking centers. In his previous 3 games, Allen had totaled 38 points and 20 rebounds. So he almost eclipsed that in one game. The Cavaliers, all these trades, the upheaval here. But at least for one night, what was that? Jared Allen was the centerpiece of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
And like I said, James Harden coming in might get some easier buckets and no Evan Mobley, which I think, is opening up more opportunities for Jared Allen. And he hasn't been a great fantasy producer, so it was nice to see that explosion performance, and certainly worthy of a What Was That stat line.
And with that, that is the end of today's RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Dabble. Thank you, everyone, for being in and asking questions on YouTube. Don't forget to use promo code YouTube15 for 15% off any rotowire.com subscription. Tomorrow is the NBA trade deadline. There's going to be a lot changing across the fantasy basketball landscape. Hit us up on Twitter or X. Ask any questions that you may have. Kirien and I will be here to help you win your fantasy basketball leagues. Enjoy the trade deadline. I hope your team gets better, and I hope the Bulls make more trades.